Good afternoon, everybody. I think we're poised to get going here, and we'll be beginning with a report out of Conference Board. So perhaps if we could get the co-chairs of Conference Board to come up and be prepared to present their report. Thank you both. We are in your hands as we kick off day 4. Over to you.
Yep, they're good. Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So this is sort of a summary of the recommendations from coming out of the Conference Board. So for fishing periods, season opening and closing dates, the Canadian side of the Conference Board recommended an opening date of March 7th, as there's good series of tides. It's opening on a Friday, and so fish get to the market in the middle of the week. That passed in favor of Canada, 22-0-1. It did not. It was 12-15 against 6 abstained in the U.S. The U.S. Conference Board recommended an opening date of March 10th. That failed in the Canadian side, passed in the U.S. side. You can refer to Section 4 for the details. There was a unanimous recommendation for the closing date of December 7th at 23:59. Canada in favor, 22 against 1. U.S. 23 against 6. I would also note that the closing dates recommended, the opening times, 6 a.m. local time, so that'd be 5 a.m. in Alaska and 4 a.m. in Aleutian time. So IPHC regulation, fishery regulations, sports fishing Pacific halibut. IPHC regulatory areas 2C, 3A, 3B, 4A, B, 4C, 4D, and E. Charter management measures. The CB noted and recommended that the Commission adopt fishery regulation proposal IPHC 25-AM101-Prop B1 that included charter management measures in IPHC regulatory areas 2C and 3A, reflective of mortality limits developed by the IPHC and resulting allocations under the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council. The Catch Council's Pacific Halibut Catch Sharing Plan. That's a long sentence. The CB raised no objections on the proposed framework and noted that the proposal was extensively vetted through the North Pacific Fishery Management Council process. IPHC mortality and fisheries limits, definition of overfishing. The CB recommended the Commission direct the MSAB to use the MSC process to evaluate management procedures that will avoid coastwide and possibly biological region level, biological reference points, relative and or absolute, with a to be determined degree of probability, especially under a low productivity regime. Canada in favor, 23, 0 against, nothing abstained. US 24 in favor, 7 against, 2 abstained. Other business halibut research. The CB recommended that the commissioners conduct a review and as needed research to identify spawning and nursery areas of biological importance to the Pacific halibut stock to determine whether management actions to protect these areas, including temporal actions, could benefit stock production and increase abundance of the Pacific halibut stock. Other business. Implementation of electronic logbooks in Alaska, noting that the RTD Deckhand is offering tablets free of charge to fishers in Alaska who would like to participate in the electronic logbook data program. The CB recommended that Alaska fishers reach out to IPHC or RTD Deckhand to take part in the program. Requests. The CB noted the importance of maintaining long-term, robust fish data across all IPHC regulatory areas and requested increased fish stations as funding allows. The CB noted the FIS is no longer revenue neutral and calls to the attention the importance of securing equitable funding for the FIS from contracting parties. Incidental catch, bycatch. The CB noted an overview of the progress in developing abundance-based management in the Gulf of Alaska provided by NOAA Fisheries, including updates on improvements in the Gulf of Alaska monitoring. The CB noted that the non-pelagic trawl catch monitoring rate is now 87%. For reference, additional details are available in Table 4.4 of the North Pacific Observer Program 2023 Annual Report. The CB requests that this table to be provided to the conference board annually by NOAA Fisheries. My co-chair will do the mortality limits.
Unless you want to pause there for questions before we go into mortality limits.
Let's go ahead with questions then. John.
Thank you. So noting that there was some differences regarding the season opening, I wonder if you could give us a sense of the nature of discussions around the potential for later dates, if those were discussed.
Yeah, so the Canadian position, the Canadian sort of side of the conference board is, as early a date as possible to extend the season. March the 7th, like I said, I had good tides. As there's during the March openings, there's less grounds that can be fished, and so the larger tides make those actually unfishable. So you start at the build as the tides are beginning to build, as opposed to in there. The U.S. side, we're talking about a later date. I think sometime, was it the 14th or the 15th? Because and principally because they didn't think their regulatory administrative process could process all the paperwork needed to sort of issue permits for fishing. The Canadian side, recognize that, but Canada wanted to, or TB wanted to communicate that they prefer as early as opening as possible, understanding that hopefully that the permitting issues could be worked out on the U.S. side, but they wanted that to be known to the commissioners. That pretty close?
Yeah, I think that I would just add to that there was discussion of the importance of a fair start. But yes, there are a number of U.S. members who would like as long a season as possible, mostly because of blackcod. But as Jim mentioned, some concerns about the regulatory process being able to be in place. And then we had some discussions about impacts on spawning stocks of early openings, late closures, and that there's uncertainty about whether can't say there is or can't say there isn't an impact. So I think that sort of captures the realm of the conversations we had.
Okay, thank you both.
Other questions? Commissioner DeGrief?
Yeah, I just want to confirm what I had written, that the U.S., weighed all these interests and they voted for March 10th, and that won the day.
For the U.S. side.
Yes, through the chair, the U.S. supported March 10th, recognizing that may not be possible given some of the regulatory restrictions, the process being able to move quickly enough, and deferring to people on the U.S. commissioners who may have better information than we did on what's possible.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, that Canadian side, March 10th basically gave them one day to fish before the building tides, and so that was why it was rejected on the Canadian side.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you both for that. Did you raise your hand, Neil, or not? No? Okay. So we can turn back to the balance of the presentation for the report.
Okay, thank you. Linda Benkin. I'm going to be reading from section 5, mortality limits. It's a bit lengthy, but I think every point there is probably important to somebody on the conference board. So I will try to be complete. So coastwide perspective, the CB noted the overall concern about stock productivity throughout the convention area. Then going to regulatory area perspectives, the CB noted concern shared by the US CB members regarding the lack of full station coverage and regulatory areas 3A, 3B, 4A, 4B, and 4CD and E, and impacts of being in low productivity regime. USCB members also emphasized the importance of stability in fishing limits and highlighted the need for greater attention to O32 stock distributions as a basis for allocations. 25, the CB noted the Canadian statement recalling that the IPHC Secretariat has stated there are no biological basis for IPHC regulatory areas and that biomass distribution is a science exercise, while TCUI distribution is a policy decision that is informed by science and socioeconomic considerations. Canada has never accepted O32 biomass distribution as a basis for allocating the coastwide TCUI. Further, the science via simulation-tested management procedures shows that 20% of the coastwide TCUI could be allocated to Canada, and this would not create a conservation concern for the Pacific halibut stock. Moreover, in many instances, since apportionment was introduced in 2007, the U.S. and Canada have agreed to deviate and have deviated from using O32 biomass distribution to distribute the coastwide TCUI between the two contracting parties and between USA IPHC regulatory areas. 26, the CB noted USA statements that MSE results on distribution procedures identified impacts on USA IPHC regulatory areas, including reduced spawning biomass in Region 2, resulting from long-term mortality levels in IPHC regulatory area 2B and excess of FIS O32 abundance. These impacts most significantly impact adjacent USA IPHC regulatory areas such as 2C and 3A. At 27, the CB noted the USA CB lack of support for Canada's harvest above modeled O32 distribution in Area 2B because Canada's proportional harvest is larger than O32 stock distribution in Area 2B has ever been, and this larger proportional harvest was accomplished without agreement by the CB. O32 abundance has always been greater in Area 2C than in Area 2B, and yet Area 2B is taking a larger harvest. The USCB has never agreed to the concept of a national share. The USCB stated that just as there is no biological basis for IPHC regulatory areas, there is no biological basis for a Canadian national share. Canada is continuing to fix its TCUI to the coastward TCUI is constraining the U.S. from taking larger proportional cuts for conservation. Canada is only paying a small share of the IPHC's annual budget. Going to 5.3, TCUI recommendations, 28, the CB noted the USA motion on mortality limits as presented in Table 2, which amounts to a coastwide reduction of 15.3%. In support, the USA CB noted that the proposed allocation reflects the need to protect fish and younger year classes, aligns with data trends from the FIS, and considers socioeconomic concerns and treaty rights. Some USA members expressed support for the motion, but indicated they would prefer a larger reduction overall. Other USA CB members stated opposition, noting the stock remains above biological conservation limits. Non-tribal 2A CB members noted a 2% cut to the TCUI in 2A will have the effect of reversing management stability created by a consistent allocation of 1.65 million pounds. USACB members stated strong support for each area's mortality limit being informed by the FIS distribution for that area. The motion passed among members from the U.S., Canada in favor, 0 against, 23 abstain, 0. USA in favor, 25 against, 8 with 0 abstentions. At 29, the CB noted area-specific rationale provided by USCB as follows. 2A, the 2% decline reflects the overall decline in coastwide TCUI, but is smaller to respect treaty rights. 2B, 17% reduction is responsive to the overall decline sought by USCB members, brings area 2B mortality closer to, although still above, both historic and current FIS distributions. 2C, 8.5 reduction in IPHC regulatory area 2C TCY is very close to FIS distribution and has highest WPUE of any area. 3A, the 20% cut is responsive to anecdotal fishery performance information and historic FIS performance. 3B, the 15% cut is based on USACB desire to implement a 15% coastwide cut, not an assessment of 3B stock health or sustainability at current levels. Despite concerns over the limited scope of the 2024 FIS, 3B continues to demonstrate strong productivity, holding the second highest WPUE and the lowest harvest rate among fully utilized areas. 4A, 4B, a 16 and 15% reduction respectively, and regulatory area 4A and 4B. For these reductions in regulatory areas 4A and 4B are because the areas face processing and marketing challenges that communities are actively working to address. Weight per unit effort has fallen considerably, but fishing intensities in these areas is low. Also, each area is below the FIS distribution for that area. The USACB supports a reduction to aid in stock rebuilding, reflecting conservation efforts. 4B stakeholders also note the absence of relevant and recent FIS data. 4C, D, and E, 15% reductions recommended here reflect rebuilding, the need to rebuild local fishery and reestablish markets after losing the local processor, that is extremely important to the community of St. Paul. Despite relatively stable indices, the CB supports reductions to aid in stock rebuilding. The CB noted mortality projections for 2025 based on the TCY supported by the USCB is detailed in Appendix 3. Table 2 gives you what those percentages amount to in numbers by area and for the total. I'll go on to 31. The CB noted Canada's lack of support for the USA's proposed distribution in Table 2, which is informed by a 3-year average 032 FIS biomass distribution. See paragraph 25, read previously for the rationale that was provided. 32, the CB noted the Canadian motion on mortality limit for IPHC regulatory area 2B, representing a 15% decrease, resulting in a TCY of 5.5 million pounds. The motion passed among members from Canada, in favor 22, against 1, with no abstentions. USA in favor 4, against 26, with 3 abstentions. 33, the CB noted mortality projections for 2025 based on the TCY supported by Canadian CB, detailed in Appendix 3. The CB noted the following rationale provided by Canadian CB members in support of its motion on 5.5 million pound TCY. Pacific halibut are a single coastwide population, and the stock assessment is signaling several concerns. For example, despite the reductions to the coastwide TEC over the last 2 years, the FIS and fishery indices are at historic low levels. The stock remains at a low productivity level due to low weighted age and low recruitment through at least 2016, and the strength of the 2016 and if it will even be above average is still in question. Oh, the strength of that year class and whether it will even be above average is still in question. For the first time, the probability of being below the limit reference point of B20 has risen above 1% and now stands at 11%. A lack of or reduced FIS sampling in certain areas of the coast has resulted in uncertainty in both the trend and scale of the stock distribution in different IPHC biological regions and regulatory areas, and the size of the credible intervals of FIS results this year. Going on to the next, the stock assessment is signaling a problem with the stock. The IPHC regulatory area 2B, the fishery and FIS 032 weight per unit effort trends both declined by 1% compared to last year, but are at or near historic lows. And the reports from the commercial fleet was that fishing was scratchy. Given the metrics and indicators in our area this year, e.g. fishery and FIS 032 weight per unit effort trends, a 15% cut for IPHC regulatory area 2B may seem more than what is needed, but we need to be careful. In biological region 2, there is a problem, but there are bigger problems in other areas of the coast. There is a need for reduction that will make a meaningful difference. There is a need to get ahead of the stock decline and hopefully help things turn around. The IPHC regulatory areas 2A and 2C need to be part of this to help address the problems in biological region 2, and all regulatory areas need to make meaningful cuts to address the problems in their regions and help the coastwide population. At 35, the CB noted that the USA CB did not support Canadian proposed mortality limits. That is not informed by O32 distribution. The rationale was provided in paragraph 27. Thank you for bearing with that, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for taking us through that. Colleagues, do we have questions? Seeing none. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, I would turn us to the Processor Advisory Board and call on the chairperson to come up and present for us, please, their report.
Let's get on this. Summarize first. I guess we can just start there and go through it. That's what I it's confusing. You took yours apart. So what's in the order there? First. Two-page executive summary. God damn it. There's 3 appendices. This is if we can send it. Executive summary doesn't have the associated minutes with the comments. This meeting's trying to figure it out.
Can I ask a question just while our chairs are sorting themselves out? I may have missed it, but I don't see in the conference board report. Jim, Linda, was there a recommendation on the time of day for the opening?
Yeah.
Was there?
It's 6 o'clock. Well, 6 a.m. local.
I got something.
5.
Oh, yes. Yes, you did say that. Okay, thank you. Apologies.
Appendix. Should have brought my laptop. Yeah. I'm going to start there. Is that the same thing? No. No, it's a different order. Yeah. Well, this nails it down, so I guess we just go through this. Worry about the order? I suppose. We'll read it. I think turn the mic on. Oh, it's working. Okay, good. Thank you, commissioners, and thank you for having us here to present the PAB recommendations. For PAB 030, Record 1, PAB recommended the following fishing periods for 2025. opening March 14th with 12 USA in favor against 1 absent, and Canada 5 in favor. Closing date November 15th. Canada 5 in favor, none against. USA 12 in favor, 0 against, and 1 absent. In PAB 030, recommendation 2, the PAB recommended the following fishing periods, opening and closing times of the day, 2025. It doesn't even say. It was, opening 1200 hours on the 14th, closing 1200 hours on the 15th, noting concerns by NOAA. PAB 030, recommendation 3, PAB recommended a 15% TCEY reduction from status quo in each contracting party, Canada and the United States of America, coastwide. Canada in favor, 3, 1 against, 1 abstain. USA 12 in favor, 1 absent. On PAB 030, recommendation 4, PAB noted and recommended that the Commission adopt Fisheries Regulation Proposal IPHC 2025 AM101 Proposition A1 as detailed in Section 5, but noting that it includes items that are outside of the purview of IPHC. Canada 5 in favor, none against. USA 12 in favor, none against, 1 absent. In fisheries regulation, commercial fishing periods, PAB 030 recommendation 5, PAB noted and recommended that the Commission do not adopt fisheries regulation proposal IPHC 2025 AM101 Proposition A2 that specified fishing periods for commercial Pacific halibut fisheries, given that the opening and closing times have already been voted in line with NOAA's regulations for Pacific halibut and sablefish. Canada in favor 5, none against. USA 12 in favor, none against, or 1 abstain, 0 absent. On minor amendments, PAB 030 recommendation 6, PAB noted and recommended that the Commission adopt Fisheries Regulation Proposal IPHC 2025 AM101 Proposition A3 that improves consistency in the IPHC fisheries regulation. Canada 5 in favor, none against, none abstain. USA 5 in favor, 0 against, 8 absent. PAB 030 recommendation 7, the PAB noted fishery regulation proposal IPHC 2025 AM101 Proposition C1 that proposed a year-round commercial Pacific halibut fishery in the IPHC regulatory area 2B and recommended that the Commission does not adopt it. Canada in favor 4, 1 abstain. USA 13 in favor, no abstain, no absent. Under other proposals, in PAB 030 recommendation 8, the PAB noted that IPHC 2025 AM101 Proposition C4 that proposed a rebuilding plan for Pacific halibut and IPHC AM101 Proposition 5 that proposed a reaction to the Pacific halibut stock overfishing and recommended that a MSAB and SRB further review them. Canada in favor 4, 1 abstain. USA 13 for, 0 against. Other business. Recommendation number 9. The PAB recommended adopting options A, C, and D in paragraph 28 of document IPHC 2025 FAC 101-R. Canada is unanimous, USA in favor unanimous. In PAB 030, recommendation 10, the PAB recommended to continue having two separate subsidiary bodies. The PAB strongly opposes option B in paragraph 28 of document IPHC 2025 FAC 101R, noting that the importance of unique perspectives and inputs that each board provides to the IPHC process. Canada in favor, unanimous. USA in favor, unanimous. PAB 030, recommendation 11. The PAB recommended the IPHC Secretariat lend their support to the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council to establish a policy of abundance-based Pacific halibut bycatch limits for the trawl fleet in the Gulf of Alaska. Canada in favor, unanimous. USA in favor, unanimous. PAB 030, recommendation 12. The PAB recommended that the Commission direct appropriate IPHC Secretariat staff to review and conduct the necessary research to identify nursery habitats of biological importance to the Pacific halibut stock so as to determine whether management actions to protect these areas could promote recovery of the stock. Canada in favor, unanimous. USA in favor, unanimous. PAB 030, recommendation 13. The PAB recommended that the Research Advisory Board and the Scientific Review Board review the findings on nursery habitat research with the goal of increasing the sustainability of Pacific halibut stocks. Canada in favor, unanimous. USA in favor, unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, do we have questions? Seeing, oh, sorry, Peter.
Thanks, Bruce, for the report. Just a question. I don't know if you mentioned it. I must have missed it. November 15th is different closing date to last year. Could you just go into rationale?
Yeah, we had a pretty robust discussion about this, and the key factors for making the closing date sooner were some safety concerns and quicker information for the interim meeting for IPHC to be able to digest the data and get the data in. We're worried about the accuracy of the forecasting already, and it's with a declining stock we prioritize accuracy of the reporting. Did I catch it all in one?
Pretty much. I mean, I would just add in there that we had a fairly lengthy, like you said, lengthy discussion, and in that discussion we had some input from Dr. Stewart about logbook input and the timeliness of that. And you know, there's always concerns from the Alaska contingent, especially from processors, in staying open later. But at the end of the day, I think that the availability of that data for science and for determining projecting stocks forward carried the day at the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you both. And taking note, I guess, of recommendation 10 from PAB with regards to advisory bodies, I would reassure all parties that we have not, as a council, or as a commission rather, yet made any determinations or decisions as to the future organizational structure rather of the commission. What we are endeavoring to do is to review those and ensure that we continue to have efficiencies as we struggle with our current financial prospects. So duly noted in terms of the advice coming forth from PAB, certainly well heard and well understood. But we will still explore options in this regards for efficiencies and bring those back to this forum for discussion.
Thank you, Commissioner. If I could just add one thing quickly, I think it would be timely for us to opinion to you how much we appreciate the IPHC staff and their input and their patience with us. And we have a really good staff, and we really appreciate it. So thank you very much to all of them.
I'd echo that and only extend the fact that I think their patience is greater with ourselves than it is with you. Thank you both. We are running decidedly ahead of schedule. I don't know whether we needed a moment before we turn to regulatory reviews, or should we dive into that? We can proceed. Okay.
Hello, maybe now. Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you. So as said, we have now on the agenda the time to revisit IPHC regulator proposals. And it's great that now we have input from both conference board and processor advisory board, so that can inform the decisions on those proposals as well. So as a reminder, on the agenda for today and for this meeting for decision, we have in total 9 regulatory proposals. And I will note that the recommendation from the Secretariat is to take actions on as many as possible of these proposals so that we can streamline the agenda for the decision on mortality and fishery limits for tomorrow. But as needed, any other proposal may be deferred to Friday as well. And we'll start with the IPHC regulator proposal A1. This proposal is a mortality and fishery limits proposal. And I would like to clarify here that this proposal is a framework for introducing mortality and fishery limits into the IPHC fishery regulations, as well as introducing the fishery limits resulting from the TCY decisions and the domestic catch sharing arrangement. So the decision on this proposal is just to approve the framework, and the mortality limits and the resulting fishery limits would be part of the decision that we are expecting from the Commission tomorrow. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you for that overview. Do we have a motion on this proposed regulation? John?
Move to adopt the framework, and we'll fill in the blanks tomorrow.
Do we have a second? Neil? Thank you. I think that takes us to our next one.
Just confirm.
Sorry. Process. Do we have discussion? Seeing none. Okay. So all in favor? Aye. Perfect. Thank you. And thank you for the training meals.
Thank you. Moving to proposal A2, this proposal is for commercial fishing periods. And again, this proposal on its own is also a framework for introduction of the commercial fishing period opening and closing date, as well as necessary hour. But as a follow-up to the proposal, the Commission might want to take action also on the specific commercial fishing season opening and closing. And again, as a reminder, there's no need to set specific 2A non-tribal directed commercial fishing periods, as these will be set within the overall commercial fishing period by within the domestic framework.
Thank you for that. So do we have a motion on this one? John?
Likewise, move to adopt the framework, and we'll fill in the specifics tomorrow.
Perfect. Do we have a second? Commissioner Davis? Thank you. Do we have any need for discussion? Nope. Seeing none. On to the next. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving to proposal A3. The proposal A3 added some additional language that was intended to improve consistency of the IPHC fishery regulations. I will note that based on the meeting with policy advisors from both contracting parties this morning, there might be willingness to work more on this specific action and include that as a part of the agenda for the next meeting. But I will move to you, Chair, to make the decision on this proposal.
Thank you for that. Noting your comments as well. Do we have a motion on this one? John?
Thank you. So in this case, I do not support continuing action on this. So I don't know that there's any action for us to take. So I don't have a motion per se. I'll note that this, despite very good intentions from the Secretariat in trying to clear things up, after our staff spent some time going over the proposed language and the implications, and considering that the existing regulatory language really has posed no problems that we're aware of from an enforcement perspective or user perspective. This strikes me a bit as looking like a solution in search of a problem, and could potentially cause new confusion for users. So that's why I don't have a motion at this time, and really don't think it's something the staff need to spend additional time on. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Do we require a second for that? Okay, so we are good. On to the next then.
Thank you very much. I'll note that there was no action on proposal A3, and moving to proposal B1. Proposal B1 is a proposal from NOAA Fisheries, and this proposal introduces a framework for charter management measures in IPHC regulatory areas 2C and 3A. And this text reflects the potential language that would be incorporated in regulations, but specific values and specific additional details will be included as the Commission makes the decision on the DCUIs by IPHC regulatory area. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you for that overview. Do we have a motion on this one? John? Oh, Richard?
Yeah, I move that we adopt this framework and that we'll fill in the appropriate regulatory measures tomorrow.
Do we have a second? Sure. Thank you for that. Any discussion? Seeing none, on to the next.
Moving to proposal C1 and moving to the stakeholder proposals. Proposal C1 proposes year-round commercial Pacific halibut fishery in IPHC regulatory area 2B. And specific language is offered here on the screen. Thank you. Over to you, Chair.
Sorry. Thank you for that. Do we have a motion on C1? Peter?
At this time, it doesn't, as we're considering openings and closings and such, this time we're not going to support this proposal, but we would like further analysis, or I request that some further analysis is done in terms of compiling earlier reports and seeing how they fit to today's assessment of the stock and other considerations for the conservation of the halibut resource. I requested that report is produced for next year's annual meeting.
Thank you for that. Any other views? John?
Just I guess a question for the maker of the motion. If your intent was also to include having staff note any marketing effects from the year-round opening, which might be useful information for us.
Yeah, anything that is pertinent to this proposal, and if we can compile it on all one document, so we can look at that in the future. Thank you.
Good. Thanks for that clarification.
Clear. Thank you. So let's move on to the next one, C2.
Thank you. Moving to proposal C2. This proposal was intended to introduce a closing of the one-way door for Pacific Halbut IFQ CDQ holders from IPHC Regulatory Area 4C into IPHC Regulatory Area 4D north of 60 degrees north latitude and east of 174 degrees west longitude. And if we move to the appendix, the regulatory language, I believe that will be Appendix B. Sorry. If you just go a little bit higher, not the appendix. Yeah, so this proposal would specifically seek a deletion of section 12, paragraph 6 that allows this to occur, and that's pretty much a summary of this proposal. And over to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have a motion on this one? Commissioner Albertson.
Through the chair, I would ask that the Secretariat send a note to the North Pacific Council that we received this proposal. It was looked at by our conference board, and we believe that the purview belongs to the North Pacific Council. I'd leave the wording up to the Secretariat.
Thank you for that. Agreed. So we're on to C3.
Thank you. And certainly we can prepare that letter and send it as requested. Moving to proposal C3, this proposal was proposing a TCY for IPHC Regulatory Area 2A of 1.65 million pounds for 2025, and this proposal was submitted by the Makah tribe. And over to you, Chair, for the decision on this one.
Thank you for that. Do we have a motion on this one? John?
I don't have a motion on this, but I would note that the proposal from Makah is, I believe, referenced in the proposal is noting the motivation is to ensure fulfillment of the U.S. obligations to the 13 treaty tribes on the West Coast, and that we typically set our TCUI levels all together for all of the both coastwide and all of the regulatory areas at once. So my suggestion would be that we not take any action on this, but rather address it tomorrow in the context of the broader TCUI setting.
Thank you for that. So noted. C4.
Thank you very much. And noting that the proposals C4 and C5 were discussed jointly, I suggest that the Commission address both of these proposals together. And there was no specific regulatory language, and there was no, the proposal C4 did not provide a specific way to implement that in the regulations, but we can bring on the screen the proposal C5 that included the specific language that was proposed. And over to you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on this? John, go ahead.
Here again, I don't have a motion because I don't think action is needed for us, but I would just note that both the proposals are very much germane to the Commission's consideration of a harvest strategy policy and the ongoing work around that, and that commissioners have had some discussion at this meeting about next steps on that and discussed a path forward with the Secretariat. So I expect we'll be addressing a lot of the concepts that are included in both of these proposals in that process in the very near future.
Agree with both that statement and that the intent of that, which is to thank both the proponents for these proposals and look forward to them being picked up through that process. That's it.
Thank you very much. And I'll just provide the clarification about the finalization of the whole process, if that's all right. So as a reminder, the IPHC fisheries regulations will be revised based on the decisions that the Commission made today, as well as the decisions tomorrow on the commercial fishing periods and mortality and fishery limits that were deferred to tomorrow. As all decisions are made, I will be preparing the revised text of the IPHC fisheries regulations that will be circulated between all the policy advisors for verifications. And as the finalized text is prepared, we'll send that text to both contracting parties for adoption and implementation. And that concludes my presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I believe that concludes our agenda for today. Unless, David, did you have anything for the parties? Nope. So thank you very much. We can conclude and pick up tomorrow. Thank you.